Good afternoon, members. We'll make a start. You're very welcome to the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee meeting on Monday, 19th of May at 4 p.m. We're going to start now with notice and summons of meetings and members' attendance and apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. You're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee, which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber, Guildhall, on Monday, the 19th of May, 2025 at 4 p.m. Just take the roll, members. Alderman Darren Guy. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Online, Denise.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Online, Denise.
Councillor Amanda Clark, I've received apologies for. Councillor Caitlin Denny. Councillor Caroline Devine.
Sure.
Councillor Gary Donnelly.
Fanshawe.
Councillor Paul Gallagher. Councillor Fergal Leonard. Councillor Patricia Logue. Councillor Patrick Murphy. Councillor Declan Norris. Councillor Martin Riley.
Online, Denise.
Councillor Brian Tierney. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Denise. Moving on now to the broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council's privacy notice can be found on the Council website. Moving on now to item 4, that's declarations of members' interest. I don't see anyone declaring an interest, so moving on now to chairperson's business. And I have just one item myself. This is my last meeting as chair. I would just like to say a few thank yous. I want to thank all of the members of the committee here for helping to make these meetings run so smoothly and making my job so much easier. I'd like to say a special thanks as well to Brona as our independent advisor for your input and your expertise to the committee, so thank you for that. And to thank Councillor Riley for as deputy chair. It hasn't had to be called in, but I appreciate his availability. I want to thank the officers for their support over the year, particularly to Denise and Deborah and James. The work that goes into these reports, I'm sure you'll all agree, is colossal. The reports are really full and comprehensive with a lot of detail in them. And I think that provides great transparency and it gives us confidence as well in the policies and the procedures and the controls within Council. Also, just finally, a word of thanks to the staff from the Audit Office for coming to these meetings as well and for the reports that they provide. And again, just providing reassurance, I suppose, to us that the Council systems, their controls and the practices comply with external standards and are also in line with best practice. So, Sinead. Moving on now to item number 6, and that's the matters arising from the open minutes of Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee held on Tuesday, the 18th of March. Any matters arising? Councillor Riley, do you want to come in?
Yeah, Chair, I was just under your chairperson's business item just on behalf of the SDLP group to thank you for the way you've conducted the business over the past 12 months and chairing the committee in a very fair way and impartial manner. So thank you for that over the past 12 months from our group. In terms of the item we're on now, just happy to propose the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I just, on behalf of our party, I just want to thank you for your year as Chair and all the Council officers' work to date. And obviously, I wasn't here for the roll call, but if I could be more present now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Loeb. Councillor Donnelly.
Current Audit Chair, and like the previous two speakers, I'd like to place on record my appreciation for your stewardship over the last year, and for your deputy, Councillor Martin Riley. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. So we have proposed to accept the, sorry, that was matters arising. So moving on now to item 7, and that's the internal audit report, and Deborah's going to take that first.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of this report is to update members on the internal audit work completed within Derry City and Strabane District Council in the period March to May 2025. Following audit work has been finalised recently. Internal audit of Derry and Strabane PCSP for the 24-25 financial year. Follow-up internal audit of building control, income collection and other internal audit work. Start first of all with PCSP audit. Derry and Strabane PCSP is a statutory body established under the Justice Act, Northern Ireland 2011. It brings together in one partnership the functions and responsibilities of the district policing partnerships and community safety partnerships. Derry and Strabane PCSP came into existence in June 2015 and was reconstituted in September 15. It is a function of the Council to establish the PCSP. PCSP receives grant funding from a joint committee of the Department of Justice and Northern Ireland Policing Board. It is the Council's Chief Exec who is accounting officer for the funding provided by the joint committee. The PCSP is required to comply with the accountability framework set by the joint committee and its financial guidelines. As such, this audit was requested by the PCSP manager and included within the 24-25 internal audit plan of work to comply with the requirement within the joint committee funding agreement to have an internal audit carried out annually. The purpose of the review was to provide an independent professional opinion on the adequacy and effectiveness of internal control, risk and governance processes. Internal audit reviewed the risk management, corporate governance and control arrangements, the policy and procedures, financial and other, admin and operational expenditure, purchasing, procurement and monitoring reporting arrangements in place for Derry and Strabane PCSP. In addition, internal audit reviewed progress made in relation to the implementation of previous internal audit recommendations made in last year's PCSP internal audit report. Paragraphs 3.1.5 to 3.1.9 provide background in relation to the results of audit work in these areas. In addition, of the 6 recommendations made in the PCSP 23-24 internal audit report, 2 are now fully implemented, 2 partially implemented and 2 not implemented. Overall, while some control weaknesses were identified across the areas under review, internal audit is satisfied that overall there were adequate controls in place to manage risks within each area and that these controls were operating effectively. As a result, this audit has been given the assurance level of satisfactory, which is the highest level achievable. Internal audit have made 8 recommendations to improve the control environment going forward. The key priority 1 recommendations relate to the following areas: review of PCSP claim submission, approval of purchase orders for open call grant funding, completeness of member expense claim form, and compliance with procurement requirements. Management have responded positively to the recommendations raised, and the table of recommendations with implementation dates is included in the report, which is attached at Appendix A for information. The next audit completed was the follow-up internal audit of building control income collection. As you may recall, in May 2024, internal audit completed an audit of building control income collection, and based on the audit work carried out, the controls in place over building control income collection provided the assurance level of improvement needed. In total, 45 recommendations were made to strengthen the control environment. Internal audit have recently completed a follow-up audit to determine whether the agreed recommendations had been implemented. In assessing the level of implementation, internal audit reviewed relevant supporting documentation and undertook sample testing. From the 45 agreed recommendations made in the original audit report, 29 are now fully implemented, 13 are now partially implemented, and 3 recommendations are not yet implemented. As a result of the significant progress that has been made since the original audit report, this follow-up audit has been given the assurance level of satisfactory, which is the highest rating available. Progress has been made in the majority of recommendations, and an overview of those not implemented is given in paragraph 3.2.3. The current position in each of the recommendations and the details of follow-up testing are set out in the report, which is attached at Appendix B for information. Other internal audit work. Internal audit undertook annual stocktake assurance work by sampling a number of items subsequent to the stocktake taking place to ensure the accuracy of records and no significant issues were identified. Internal audit have also delivered 2 further sessions of fraud awareness training to staff. There are no implications as a result of this work. Recommendation is to seek members' endorsement of the internal audit reports. I'm happy to take any questions from an audit perspective, and management from each of the areas are here today if there's any questions from an operational perspective. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Deborah. Members, do you have any questions? Sorry, Alderman Kerrigan, I'm not doing a great job of chairing my last meeting. I missed your comment in the chat.
You're all right, Chair. I'll just come on now very briefly. In regards, three very quick points. I congratulate you for your term of office, but I wouldn't expect anything different from a member for the Derg DA. And you've been very fair and impartial in your office of chair and your vice chair, Councillor Riley. I will declare an interest as a member of the PCSP, but and on this item in regards to the building control paper, I have no issues in regards to it. But that's just a few comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Councillor Riley, we've noted your declaration of interest as well. Councillor Donnelly.
Audit, Chair, and look, it'll be well known that I disagree with the aims and objectives of the PCSP. In my opinion, is to normalise and legitimise British policing in this part of Ireland. And in my opinion, it's completely ineffective and it won't work, and it's a waste of money. Now, that's not an attack on the officers who carried out this body of work. I can separate that. But you did say about, I understand that's an internal control now, and I understand the audit. But you did say if there was any questions from an operational perspective. A number of months ago, it was highlighted that the number of aldermen and councillors had been members of the PCSB had been shown stopping searches of members of the public. It's my understanding there was to be a report brought back. I'm not sure if that has. I may have missed it. And particularly the issues and the concerns that were raised that day were around data protection. Is there any update on that, or where does that stand? Thank you.
Go ahead, Barry's going to respond.
Through yourself, Chair. Councillor Donnelly, I'll get some information. There were a number of officer teams within council looking at that, so there will be a report coming back through Health and Community Committee. I'll find out when that's coming and I'll let you know.
Through you, Chair, Carl. Thanks, Barry.
Thank you for that, Barry. Councillor Leonard.
It's just to also declare that there's a PCSP member, and apologies, some issues getting online at the beginning and I missed the roll call, so if I could be added as being present now.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Any further comments or questions? So members, the recommendation is to endorse the report. So can we have someone to propose and second, please?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to propose to accept the recommendation.
Can we have a seconder, please?
Chair, I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. Moving on now then to item 8, and that's the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee Self-Assessment 24-25, and Deborah's going to take that one for us.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present to members the findings of a self-assessment exercise of the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee completed for the period April 24 to March 25. The local government auditor recommends that the Council periodically undertake a self-assessment of the Council's Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee. The self-assessment is based on the SIPFA Audit Committee's Practical Guidance for Local Authorities Self-Assessment Checklist. While completion of the SIPFA self-assessment checklist is not a requirement, it is included as a tool within the SIPFA guidance, and hence the checklist represents good practice with regard to audit committees and the standards to which the Council should aspire. Moreover, it is important that the effectiveness of the audit committee is periodically reviewed. The checklist has been completed on behalf of the committee by the Internal Audit Manager to cover the period April 24 to March 25, and the detailed reports are attached at Appendix C and D. Appendix C is the completed checklist itself that incorporates the key principles set out in SIPFA's position statement, and Appendix D provides some additional detail and narrative on the answers provided. The self-assessment checklist shows that there is a high degree of compliance with the key principles of SIPFA's 2022 position statement. The self-assessment exercise will be discussed further with members of this committee as part of Audit Committee training. In March 2025, the Northern Ireland Audit Office issued the guidance publication, Effective Audit and Risk Committees, a Good Practice Guide. The Good Practice Guide has been included with the papers today for members' information. Members are advised that officers are currently in the process of carrying out a gap analysis against the Good Practice Guide, and a further report of the findings of this will be brought back to a future meeting of this committee. Members are also advised that the self-assessment exercise for 25-26 will be carried out in accordance with the new guidance issued by the Northern Ireland Audit Office. There are no implications as a result of this report. It is recommended that members endorse the self-assessment exercise of this committee's compliance with the key principles of SIPFA's 22 position statement for the period April 24 to March 25. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deborah. Members, any questions or comments on this item? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deborah, for the report. I just wanted to ask in relation to page 156, it's item 12 on the checklist, where it states, has the committee met privately with the external auditors and head of internal audit in the last year? I see the box is ticked as fully compliant, and I was just seeking a bit more information on that. I know in the new NIAO guidance, it's suggesting that the full committee meet privately, and in my own experience, that works extremely well, where you have a pre-meeting without officers, and it gives the members an opportunity to discuss any issues of concern privately with internal and external audit, and just to see maybe what the consideration is going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Brona, for that. Yeah, as you know, Brona, we've obviously completed the self-assessment based on the SIPFA code, and I know that we chatted about this. So the external auditor has met with the chair of the committee privately, and obviously the chair has the capability and capacity to meet with the head of audit at any time, or myself, or whomever. But we will complete the self-assessment for 25-26 based on the Audit Office best practice guidance, and that's definitely something that we can consider for next year. Absolutely, no problem.
Happy enough with that, Brona? Any further questions or comments, members? No, so we have a recommendation to endorse the self-assessment exercise. Can I have someone please to propose and second?
Happy to propose, Chair. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Councillor Riley.
I'll second that, Chair.
Moving on now to item 9, and that's risk review processes, an update on council service risk registers, and Denise is going to take this one.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to update you and seek your endorsement on the ongoing risk review processes in accordance with Council's risk management strategy, and to provide an update on the risk registers reviews which have been completed from November 2024 up to date. So members, you will note from the report that quite a number of service risk registers have been reviewed since November, and a list of the registers are highlighted there in the report for your information. And members, you'll also be aware that each of those risk registers details potential risks which may prevent the delivery of service objectives. The registers record the risks and summarise key sources of assurance and controls which are in place to manage the risks. The risks are all allocated a score to ensure that the high scoring risks are subject to more constant monitoring and review, and each register is reviewed regularly with the relevant service manager, and higher critical scoring risks are also reviewed regularly. A random sample member of 3 risk registers which have been reviewed during the period are attached there for your information. Upon review of the completed risk registers, members, you will note that all the risks identified have controls in place, and where there are high scoring risks, further actions are in place to ensure that all efforts are being taken to mitigate against the risk occurring. Members will note from the reports attached that there's a few risks that are still sitting as critical with a score of 15 or greater, but there's an action plan there attached, members, for your information to show you that all the risks have an action plan in place to mitigate those risks as much as possible. In addition to this, a critical risk variance report has also been attached for your information to show any residual scoring movements during the 6-month period. But as stated previously, members, the key to monitoring any risk register is to ensure that controls are in place to mitigate the risks and action plans are developed for critical scoring risks. We are satisfied that action plans are in place for all the critical scoring risks in the organisation. All the implications, members, are detailed throughout the risk registers, and happy to take any comments or questions that you may have on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Does anyone have any questions on that item? None online. So again, the recommendation is to endorse the risk review processes. So can I have someone please to propose and second?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. So the next 2 items, members, are for information. Number 10 is the Effective Audit and Risk Assurance Committee's Northern Ireland Audit Office Good Practice Guide. Brian is online. Brian, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, happy to say a few comments on it. That's okay. Can you hear
Yes,
me
go
okay?
ahead.
Yeah. Yes, we produced a guide just to. Because there's a lot of information out there in relation to guidance around audit committees, and this guide sort of pulls everything together. And what's unique about this guide is that there's section 7 specific to government. And I suppose to highlight in particular, this may be quite timely, Chair, with the end of come to the end of your tenure, paragraph 7 offer guide, I think it's page 234 in the document. We're recommending that the consideration should be given to having a member chairing the audit committee, the audit and risk assurance committee. And I suppose for a number of benefits, it helps ensure the committee is chaired by someone with appropriate knowledge and expertise, reinforces the independence and objective nature of the work of the audit committee, and provides continuity in chair of the committee. And I suppose that's what our best practice, what we've had a look. You'll also see there's a bit specific to the councils, in terms of skills and experience. And over the page 235 of your pack, in terms of roles, responsibilities, the scope, communication and reporting and continuous improvement. And again, thanks to the officers for saying that they'll take on board the checklist to be completed as part of next year, which is great. And I'm happy to take any questions on the guide, Chair.
Thank you for that, Brian. Members, do we have any questions or comments on this item? Rona, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just to comment that it's a very useful guide. It's very well put together. The checklist is quite a long one, but there's a lot of good information in that. And we look forward to that gap analysis report in due course. Thank you.
Thanks, Brona. So no further comments. I'm going to move on then to item 11. Anyone want to speak on that? No? Okay, so that's us for today. And I'm going to finish up now just by saying thank you again to everybody and all the best.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair.